Both the language and culture of the Bible strongly support the idea that puberty, at bare minimum, is a condition that must be met before becoming someone's spouse. This fits with one of the historical purposes of marriage, conceiving and rearing children. Scriptural evidence indicates that those too young for childbearing are not candidates for marriage, though there is no explicit age given in the Bible. It is reasonable to look at the practices of ancient Judaism for cultural considerations on the proper age for marriage. According to tradition, boys were not considered men and therefore not marriageable until the age of 13. Girls were not considered women until age 12. These ages more or less correspond to the onset of puberty. While those ages might seem too young to us, they are not unusual ages for getting married historically. It has only been within the last century or so that the average age of getting married has drifted into the late 20s and early 30s. It's also important to recall that maturity, often used as a benchmark for allowing sexuality and marriage, is highly cultural. In modern Western countries, people are not generally expected to be self-sufficient until they are nearly in their 20s or even later. For most of human history, however, people were expected to grow up much sooner. The age of getting married was normally young, as everyone was expected to mature socially and emotionally more quickly than today. The Hebrew language also supports the idea that puberty is a requirement for a legitimate marriage. Ezekiel 16 contains a metaphor for God's relationship to Israel. In this passage, God cares for Israel, pictured as an orphaned girl in various stages of development. The Lord first sees her birth, then watches her grow up. You grew and developed and entered puberty. Your breasts had formed and your hair had grown. Later I passed by, and when I looked at you and saw that you were old enough for love, I spread the corner of my garment over you. Verses 7-8. In this illustration, it's only after the girl arrives at physical maturity, sometime after, not during puberty, when she is old enough to love, that she's ready for marriage. Other translations say the girl grew tall and came of age, net, and grew up matured, and became a young woman, GWT. The New Testament has even less to say about the age of getting married. Still, there are clues in New Testament Greek similar to those in Hebrew. For example, 1 Corinthians 7:36 uses the word hyperakmos in reference to a female. In this case, it's a young woman who's engaged to be married. Hyperakmos is translated as past her youth, NASB, past the flower of her age, KJV, or past marriageable age, CSB. The word literally means ripe, a common euphemism in many cultures for describing a woman's capability for bearing children.